The Native Americans used a shiny glass-like shell called wampum to represent many things in their society, such as an invitation to a meeting that is taking place. Another way it was used was representing the position of people in the clan. Wampum was not the Native Americans' form of money. Wampum was not made from glass, but from resources found around the Atlantic coast. Native Americans used seashells as wampum. Wampum is an Algonquin term for the shell beads found along the Atlantic coast in the New England region. Otikoa is used by the Senecas to describe wampum and is the name of a freshwater spiral shell. The shells are assembled into belts which are used to represent different meanings.
They, they are symbols that record, whether it's a treaty or a law, they're symbols of people, buildings. They even in post-contact have dates on them. The English language. Sometimes they have names, animals, clan totems, clan symbols. They're made out of lightning whelk, and then also quahog shells together. The quahog shell is the purple shell, and then the white bead or shell is the lightning whelk. They're both shells. They're still made today of the same material. Recreations are made of the original belts because the original belts are so valuable. We don't want to handle them anymore to cause further deterioration. They're hundreds of years old. Well, it's my understanding that before the quahog shell and the lightning whelk, that bird quills were used for and colored to make the geometric patterns that are on the belts. And so if the materials were to go extinct, another medium would be used, whether they go back to bird quills or pick a new medium to represent the geometric patterns. The belts are really a mnemonic device used to recall verbatim, word for word, what the message is being woven into the belt. So, yes, glass beads are such a thing to be used, were used, and were assigned the same meaning, the same value as the quahog shell and the lightning whelk. Blue and white glass beads, black even. At times, belts were picked up and stained red as a symbol of war. At times thrown at the feet of an opposing nation as a symbol of war, and sometimes they were picked up and wiped clean as a symbol of peace. Nowadays, belts are also made out of a material called NIMO. Now, NIMO isn't used by the Confederacy, by the chiefs, but for our purposes here at Ganondagan, we use NIMO to make the wampum beads, the purple and the white. It's gives such a good look. It's so close to the real, you can't tell unless you actually touch it that it's not real wampum, that we've used it. And we use it in this one particular belt. It's called the Women's Nomination Belt. The Women's Nomination Belt is the only belt used by women, and they use it to recall verbatim, word for word, all the words used to install a loyana, or a chief, to become a chief. Okay.
There are several well-known wampum belts. Some were the Hiawatha and the George Washington belts. The Hiawatha belt records the 5 original nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and their agreement to live together in peace. The George Washington belt was made by Washington and presented to the Haudenosaunee in 1974 at the Canandaigua Treaty.
Okay, well, wampum belts are a record. It's a mnemonic device, but it's also a record of an event. It can also be part of an agreement. It can also be, in a way, the embodiment of law. So the belts which were gotten in a nefarious way by individuals or institutions um, you know, they don't belong there. It's a lot like, taking some fundamental documents from the United States, like the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or something like that, the original document. And, so that's the controversy. The people regard them not only as, important objects of cultural patrimony, but they are considered sacred, part of sacred materials that people want back in their community. So that's the reason why. Well, fortunately, in 1990, legislation was passed which protected these type of objects. The Native American Graves and Repatriation Act of 1990 was designed to protect Native materials in museums, but not just protect them, but I mean create a legal vehicle that could facilitate the return of human remains, objects related to burials, and objects of cultural patrimony and sacred items. And so that kind of law is important. But even more important than that is to really insist that the facilities finish their do the due diligence required for the law. Now, not every facility or collection falls under that law. That's a federal law, and it only relates to facilities which access federal funding. But, for example, this week we learned of some objects which appeared in a collection taken or under the care of the Peabody Museum, and which is a world-class museum, and the collection had not been evaluated, and the materials in it fall under that law, and 27 years later, that collection has not yet been the material has not yet been evaluated according to the NAGPRA law, and so nearly 30 years later, we're still having to insist on compliance.